Welcome to PayPod, the show that features thought-provoking interviews with leaders and entrepreneurs in the payments and financial technology industries. From credit card processing to Bitcoin, we cover it all. So if you want to know what's happening right now in the payments industry, stay tuned. Now, here's your host, Scott Hawksworth.
Hey, how's it going, PayPod listeners? Scott here again, serving you another nice helping of payments and FinTech discussion. And this week, we're diving into something that's been mentioned before a number of times on this very show, but we haven't had a full discussion about it: cryptocurrencies. If you've had a pulse for the last few years, you must have heard people talking about things like Bitcoin or Ethereum or crypto or the blockchain. You might have heard some opinions on all of it, people saying it's all a scam, while others are essentially fanatic worshipers talking about all the money that can be made and how cryptos are going to change the world. But what are cryptocurrencies? Why should businesses even care? What do they mean when we talk about payments? My guest this week trades cryptocurrencies for a living and has some awesome insight for us. But before I introduce him completely, I'll bring it back to every middle school presentation ever and start with a definition, with a modern twist because I pulled the definition from Wikipedia. A cryptocurrency is a digital asset designed to work as a medium of exchange that uses strong cryptography to secure financial transaction, control the creation of additional units, and verify the transfer of assets. Cryptocurrencies are a kind of alternative currency and digital currency. Cryptocurrencies use decentralized control as opposed to centralized digital currency and central banking systems. The decentralized control of each cryptocurrency works through distributed ledger technology, typically a blockchain, that serves as a public financial transaction database. Okay, so there you have it. Now it's time to dive into what all this means and officially enroll you in Cryptocurrency 101 via podcast. Our guest lecturer on the topic, Will Salisbury, actually trades cryptos for a living, and he even started a website and podcast that educates others on cryptocurrencies and the blockchain itself called blockchaindecrypted.com. So needless to say, he knows quite a bit about this. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
For sure. To start us off, can you tell us just a little bit about your journey into the world of cryptocurrencies and crypto investing? How did you get into it? What's the story?
I started off a couple of years ago looking at Bitcoin more as a curiosity than anything else. I was trading stocks at the time and marked up a chart with a possible entry in Bitcoin. Yeah, at the time, Bitcoin's price was $1,000. I ended up closing this chart and forgetting about it. About a year or two later, I was looking through some old desktop documents and stumbled on my Bitcoin chart. Bitcoin was now at over $10,000. As you can imagine, I was like, crap.
Yeah.
That really spurred me on to not miss any future opportunities in the space and to give trading a try.
Right on. So it was that moment that kind of was like, oh man, I missed an opportunity here. I'm not going to miss that again. I'm going to get into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you also host a podcast and do a lot of writing for a site called blockchaindecrypted.com. What's that site all about?
That site's all about educating people on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And we also host a really cool podcast that covers those same things. And it's got some really great guest interviews on there from some really knowledgeable people in the space. And we also provide some really well-written guides and some thorough blog posts that have a lot of effort put into them.
For sure, for sure. So if someone's curious about, hey, I want to learn more about whether it's investing or just what's this blockchain all about, that's what Blockchain Decrypted is all about.
Exactly.
So, okay, today we are covering Cryptocurrency 101 for folks in payments and FinTech who keep hearing all the buzz about things like Bitcoin and wondering what's up. At the top, I gave a pretty basic definition of what cryptocurrencies are. Could you explain a bit more about how they work and specifically this blockchain that powers them?
Sure. So first, it's important to note that blockchain and cryptocurrencies are two separate things. The blockchain is the technology that is behind cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are a medium of exchange that often, but not always, represents the blockchain technology behind them. The blockchain is a distributed ledger, meaning it's basically a database that is stored across hundreds of thousands or more computers. Without diving too deeply into the technical stuff, these computers are used to verify the data in the databases. They also render the databases themselves unhackable. Another really interesting aspect of the blockchain is mining. As an incentive for devoting computer power and energy to verifying the database, you are typically rewarded with cryptocurrency. Again, there are exceptions to this, but this is how it works most of the time.
I see. And what is an ICO? Can you explain a bit about what that is and how that works?
Yeah, ICOs stand for initial coin offerings. Basically, consider it like Kickstarter for a cryptocurrency. You put in some money and then receive a set amount of the coin that the ICO is creating in return.
For sure. And there are tons of ICOs. There are tons of different cryptocurrencies. Do you even have a ballpark number at this point, Will?
Oh my gosh. I know for cryptocurrencies, there's over 2,000 now. For ICOs, tons and tons, like I would say probably over 10,000. And I'd like to also say that ICOs are highly risky because you never know what each individual coin is going to be valued at. You can make educated guesses, but you never really know. For example, you could spend 30 cents per coin for 3,000 coins, only to find out they're worth 2 cents per coin on an actual exchange. Ouch, that would not be a good day for you, trust me.
Certainly not. And I think it's important to mention this because, especially in the context of payments, a lot of times we're just all talking about Bitcoin. But the thing is that there are so many other cryptos out there, and who knows what the next Bitcoin could be, or something that would surpass Bitcoin, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Now, okay, we're talking about initial coin offerings. We're talking about a little bit about how the cryptocurrencies work and the blockchain. They can be mined to increase the supply. Okay, so you can mine cryptocurrencies, but there's also a finite supply. Can you explain how mining works and why there's a finite supply of any individual crypto? Because I think that really confuses some people.
Yeah, for sure. So mining is the process of verifying transactions on the blockchain. It's what keeps the whole system running. Without mining, no transactions or database information would be verified, and the whole system would collapse. There are exceptions to this, but largely because they do a different version of mining. It's the same core principle, however. I believe having a finite supply of cryptocurrency is a wonderful thing. It's essential because it keeps cryptocurrency deflationary. If you didn't have a finite supply, people could just mine into eternity as processing power scales and completely devalue everyone else's coin. No one's interested in purchasing and holding a cryptocurrency that loses 10 or 30% of its value every single year. By having a limited supply, in theory, the value of cryptocurrency should go up over time as long as adoption increases or stays the same. There's gradually less of a coin available and the same amount of people or more want it. That amounts to a net gain in value. Basically, by having a finite supply, you're ensuring there's a financial incentive for holding coins and using them provided adoption stays the same or grows.
So it's like the gold standard.
Exactly. Very much so.
to sum it all up.
And TLDR gold standard.
Right. So that makes sense. That makes sense. And in terms of this mining, and I don't want to get too off because this is a 101 course, but we're talking huge computers processing, taking all this energy. I think I saw a news story that someone got arrested for hijacking, some of the power grid or something.
Yeah.
To mine cryptocurrencies.
I don't know the exact statistic, but it was like mining takes up more energy than like all of the cell phone use in the United States or something like that. I don't know, something crazy like that.
Right. So essentially this is just like computers running bunches of equations and dividing ones and zeros and doing all this crazy stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And then you are, at the end, it's like, oh, you've got this piece of Bitcoin or whatever it is.
Yeah, so basically you're rewarded for solving a complex algebra or math problem. And when your computer solves that super difficult problem that takes a lot of processing power, you're rewarded with a portion of the cryptocurrency you're mining for. So if you're mining for Bitcoin, you get some Bitcoin. If you were mining for Ethereum, you'd get some Ethereum, and so on and so forth.
I see. And again, mentioning the finite supply, do you know when like Bitcoin's last supply is going to run out, or is it like any kind of mining where that last little bit is just so hard to get?
Yeah, it doubles in difficulty every couple of years. So it would be really hard for me to calculate when Bitcoin will run out. I would guess it would be like 50 years or something like that. So,
but by that time, it's just so difficult to get that last.
Yeah, exactly. And then to get that last 0.0001, it would probably be like another 50 years or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, okay, a lot of people in payments keep their eye on digital currency because of its potential as an alternate and even potentially universal payment system. This is something that businesses want. They want to make things a lot simpler. I mean, just there's so much that could be improved there. But a lot of the criticism of it comes from sheer volatility. People ask, and I've talked to folks like this, how can a currency be viable for payments if it can rise and fall within seconds of a transaction? Like, oh, I sold this mouse, and now it's worth a completely different amount just in the set time it took to complete that transaction. So I'm curious, Will, what is your rebuttal to that? Why are cryptos, even if they're not there now, a tremendously viable currency for purchasing goods and services?
My rebuttal would be that in some parts of the world, the only practical way to transact is using cryptocurrency. And that's because in developing areas, they may have access to laptops, but they don't have access to a good banking system. So they can't make like a PayPal payment or something because they have no bank to tie it to. But they do have access to cryptocurrency. So regardless of any volatility, it will be used in those instances. Also, there are over 2,000 cryptocurrencies now, as I mentioned, some of which maintain a stable price. Those would be better suited as a devoted payment mechanism. So like, for example, there's Tether, which generally speaking stays one Tether is $1. So that would be a great one as a payment mechanism because it never really fluctuates.
Right. And you correct me if I'm wrong here, but for something like a Tether, because it doesn't get quite the same amount of press as a Bitcoin does, it would make sense to me that like anything in the stock market, when there's a huge press story and then the stock market freaks out, Bitcoin and maybe some of the more popular cryptocurrencies are more subject to that volatility caused by outside forces, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I would emphasize that Bitcoin is treated much more as like a stock or a store of value, and it will fluctuate. Whereas something like a Tether is treated more like a payment system, and it stays pretty even. So really, it just comes down to which coin you use. They're not all volatile.
Sure. And I think that's a good thing to mention because, a lot of people who have dismissed cryptocurrencies and payments are doing so based off of Bitcoin, which, yeah, it's really volatile. But as you're just saying, it's like, but it's kind of become more of a stock as opposed to what a crypto can be if you were trying to use it as a currency as opposed to a store of value, right?
For sure.
So, okay, as I just said, Bitcoin is the crypto that most people know about. It's the one that makes the headlines. Do you think that Bitcoin is here to stay, or will it eventually get replaced? Why or why not?
I think Bitcoin is here to stay. You have to respect brand recognition. If you say Bitcoin, everyone knows what that is.
Right. Yeah.
If you say like blockchain or cryptocurrency, some people may not know what that is or say like, what's that? But Bitcoin itself has become synonymous with cryptocurrencies. Like almost everyone is like, oh yeah, Bitcoin. That alone will keep it around in some form for many years to come. And that will give it time for it to be patched and adjusted to be more competitive with existing technologies.
Sure. So bottom line, you're like, it was the first out of the gate. It's the one that everybody knows. And and that brand recognition, I think that's a really good point, Will. It's like Kleenex,
Yeah. Until people like forget about Bitcoin, which I don't think will ever happen, the sheer amount being invested in it will keep developers working on it, and developers working on it will keep it around. So it's like a kind of like a catch-22 sort of thing.
Sure. Okay, real quick, we've already mentioned a few other cryptocurrencies, but I'm wondering if you can share some of the cryptos that you think are worth following or on the rise and what you like about each of them, just for people who are like, okay, wow, I didn't even know there was more than Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd keep an eye on Ripple. Like it or not, it'll be the go-to cryptocurrency for banks once cryptocurrency is regulated. And, once banks enter a space, usually that's a lot of money, and whatever is associated with that is going to go up in price.
Sure.
And then another one to watch is called NEM. It's capable of 3,000 transactions per second, which is amazing. That's double Visa's average transactions per second. It's also trying to be corporation and business friendly, which I think is very smart. And finally, NEM is using an innovative proof of importance technology instead of mining. It's basically rewards people for trading and using the NEM cryptocurrency rather than just holding coins or mining them.
Say that again. I'm kind of confused by that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
blowing my mind here.
Yeah, so instead of mining a coin, it uses something called proof of importance. And basically, what that is it gives people a reward for actively trading and using the NEM cryptocurrency, like for exchanges between people on like an exchange. And it's really, really interesting. It's a new type of technology that I hadn't heard of before. And I too actually had to look up what it meant. And,
sure.
And if it really takes off, I think that could be like one that really, does quite well.
Yeah. And I think it's important to just mention at this point, because we're talking about these cryptocurrencies, that right there is an example of, Bitcoin, yeah, it's the first, but the way it functions and the way it's mined and all that kind of stuff, that is not the end and the beginning of all things crypto. There are so many subtleties and different technologies and things that can happen. And so, Will, when you're outlining these other cryptos, it's like, oh, this isn't exactly like Bitcoin. It's got little different wrinkles to it.
Yeah, and some of them even have some pretty big wrinkles, like the third one I'll mention. And this one I'm really excited about. It's called IOTA. And they're developing, again, a really cool technology that allows theoretically limitless scaling. As more people join the network, it boosts the speed of the network for each person that joins. So if this technology works out, 1 million people join and the speed of the network goes up by 2,000,000%. And then, another 10 or 100 million people could join. And it keeps accelerating. And theoretically, like I said, it has limitless scaling, which is it's obviously a game changer. Like that technology hasn't been seen on the face of the earth before. So.
Wow. So, okay, we're talking about all these cryptos,
yeah,
but it's important to talk about something that a lot of people in the payments industry and in FinTech are concerned with, and that is fraud. And again, we've seen some horror stories of, millions of Bitcoin disappear overnight in South Korea.
Yep. Someone's girlfriend throws their cryptocurrency key into the garbage and they fund a recovery operation in the public trash.
Exactly. Exactly. Just all these kinds of things where it's like, okay, well, if I have all this value in this digital realm, you can't exactly, a bank isn't just going to disappear overnight, and it's like, oh, where's all the money, So my question is, how safe do you think cryptos are? And have you seen any safety and security improvements that bode well for the future?
Yeah, I think cryptos are as safe as you make them. The technology itself is virtually unhackable. That doesn't stop user error from making you lose your keys or cryptocurrency, as we've been talking about, however.
Mm-hmm.
For example, many people will hold all their cryptocurrency on an exchange without two-factor authentication set up. So if a hacker gets your password, well, goodbye to your cryptocurrency. Is that necessarily cryptocurrency's fault? Not really. That's user error. Like I would say cryptocurrency really needs a better education for people and how to store it safely. Like every single instance where someone's lost their cryptocurrency that I've ever seen, I can point to something that person did wrong that they shouldn't have that would have prevented it from ever happening.
Sure. And that's interesting because I think because cryptocurrency is completely digital, maybe there aren't the same kinds of mechanisms that we've built over hundreds and hundreds of years for banking and things like that and security, and IDs and all this kind of stuff. So really much more of the onus is on the individual of like, hey, you've got to protect your stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
It's very much a double-edged sword. It's decentralized and no one's responsible, which means ultimately you're responsible. And I don't think that's something that many people really think about a lot until suddenly their cryptocurrency is at risk or is lost or whatever. And they look back and go, I should have done this or that,
right. If you have something bad happen to your money's insured, your bank's insured.
Right.
You can get whatever it is, $250,000. If your crypto's gone, you can go to the federal government. They'll be like, oh, I'm sure things will pick up for you.
Yeah, good luck. Now, maybe, who knows, eventually someone will insure cryptocurrency, but I'm kind of skeptical about it because there are so many really easy and basic mistakes you can make. The safest thing you can do is just be educated. If you treat cryptocurrency properly, it's safe as anything.
Sure. And then this kind of segues, I think, into this next thing that we were kind of talking about earlier, and that's governments are keeping an eye on cryptos like Bitcoin, and especially those governments that have hyperinflation and other issues with their currencies. And I'm curious, do you think that this trend will continue and why? And do you think that any first world countries with mature and stable financial markets will embrace or even just validate cryptos?
Yes, I do. I think the temptation to use cryptocurrency when your country's currency is practically worthless is too tempting. If your country's currency is losing, say, 80% of its value every year, how are you supposed to make that work long term? If hyperinflation is exploding, you can barely survive and feed your family. Then right on a laptop, you have an alternative currency that's on average is going up in value year over year. So why wouldn't you just switch to that? I do think first world countries with mature and stable financial markets will eventually embrace or validate cryptos. At the very least, it'll be a matter of competition. One country will do it, and it will likely be seen as an advantage by others, so they'll follow suit. The only question is who really embraces it first. And I strongly feel, of course, it should be the US.
I see. So very much the dominoes will fall because the second, I don't know, Japan or something like that is like, hey, we're going to validate this. We're going to regulate this, or we're going to do something with this. Then the rest of the world is going to be like, okay, let's get in.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So make your case to a business right now that is not accepting Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. Maybe they've listened to this or they have been curious about it. Why should they reconsider and try to accept cryptocurrencies? What's the benefit?
That they'll get more customers and sales. There's a large number of people that only have access to cryptocurrency that would be happy to purchase their product or service, as we've been talking about. By allowing cryptocurrency, you allow them to buy any online product or service, and you're going to reach people that you wouldn't reach otherwise. Additionally, cryptocurrency could be a good means of exchange for your business. Collecting one Bitcoin is a lot different from collecting $6,000. One Bitcoin could end up being worth $10,000 or $20,000 or more in a few years. $6,000 in cash will slowly depreciate over time.
Sure. So there's even benefit because these cryptocurrencies are emerging to say, well, hey,
exactly,
our money's working for us in ways we never even thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have a segment that we like to end with. We call it our Fast 5 questions, rapid fire. Will, are you ready?
I am ready, Scott.
Okay. Make a prediction about the future of cryptocurrencies or the blockchain that you expect will happen in the next 12 to 24 months.
For cryptocurrencies, I predict that some form of regulation will be passed and banks, etc., will start to enter the space. This will likely cause the price of cryptocurrencies to go up, likely significantly. For the blockchain, we'll likely have to have at least one use case for the technology that is widely known about and appreciated. I feel like if I asked the average person on the street what blockchain technology is used for, they'd probably ask, what's a blockchain, as we mentioned. I see that changing within 2 to 3 years, and people will be like, oh yeah, the blockchain is used for that widely known service that, is being used throughout some industry.
Sure. One thing I'd add is I've seen commercials that they're powered by the IBM blockchain.
Yes.
IBM is pumping this. And so that right there, that's an example right there of companies are kind of messing with this already.
Yeah, they're already developing it for sure.
What's one cool crypto related website or resource that you've come across recently that impressed you?
I've been checking out cryptohopper.com lately. It's really cool. It's a crypto trading bot website. They sell a service for a crypto trading bot, and it generates a set of percentage return every day, and you have to configure the thing. But once you do, it's really nice. Like I've been making 1% return per day when I was trying it out, and it's really user friendly. And I spent a lot of time researching like what is the best bot, which one's easy to use. And this one's pretty cool too because it's placed on the cloud. So it trades 24/7, no matter if your computer is on or off or in the shop. So
wow, so you're sleeping and it's trading.
Yeah, and making money too. So that it's really cool.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
In the next 5 years, most Americans will make a purchase with either Bitcoin, Apple Pay, or some other thing. Which one and why?
I think it'll really depend on the medium in question. Phones and iPhones are huge. Apple Pay will probably be used there. I'd be surprised if Bitcoin was used seriously as a currency in most instances in 5 years. Too many people know it has the potential to explode in value. They'll be reluctant to be like, I'll buy a computer with Bitcoin and then be happy if they see it, go up double in price in a year, It's treated more as a store of value than as a currency.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing with that pizza, right? That person who bought the pizza with the Bitcoin and how much it's like the most expensive pizza in history or something now.
Yeah. Or like, remember when I had Ross Guy that I was interviewing for Blockchain Decrypted, and he was paying for, I think it was like his server hosting and his ASIC fees with Bitcoin. And it was like $1 a Bitcoin. So he's just throwing like hundreds of Bitcoin a month to like ASICs and server fees and stuff. I was like, yeah.
I hope they had great service.
Yeah, they better have.
So what's one piece of advice you would have for someone who maybe listened to this and, maybe they're not even in payments or whatever, and they're just really now excited in investing in and trading cryptocurrencies as a career? What advice might you have for them?
For investing, look at the history of whatever coin you want to purchase and try to buy near a yearly or all-time low if you can help it. Be comfortable with the knowledge that it may take months or even a year or more for you to see a return on your investment. There's also, of course, the advice you should hear anywhere if you're doing this seriously, which is never invest more than you're prepared to lose, and take emotion out of it. You've got to look at it like it's just numbers. And then for trading cryptocurrencies, start by paper trading. Paper trading is where you trade with fake money and track your results. Once you're profitable with paper trading for a few months, then switch to real trading. Set realistic goals for yourself and only switch to real trading once you've reached them.
Sure. All that makes sense. And I would say, only invest what you're prepared to lose. You hear those horror stories of people buying Bitcoin back in December 2017 or whatever it was. And they're like, oh, I invested my retirement fund in Bitcoin. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah. Don't be the story on the news of the 29-year-old that has $1 million in debt because he leveraged everything into Bitcoin 30 times over. Please don't be that guy. You don't want to be that guy.
For sure. Last one. What's the best business advice you've ever received, and from whom? The
best business advice I've ever received was the phrase, when there's blood in the streets, buy property. I believe Baron Rothschild said it. He was an 18th century British nobleman and member of the Rothschild banking family. And basically what it means is buy when others are fearful. But I also apply the reverse, sell when others are greedy. That's something that Warren Buffett also says. So if a bunch of rich people say it, it's probably good advice.
I think they know a thing or two about succeeding in business and in finance.
Yeah.
Will, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. This was really informative, and hopefully all the folks listening feel like they at least got a bit of a crash course about what all this cryptocurrency stuff is, and they feel they completed Cryptocurrency 101. Yeah, for sure. It's my pleasure, and I really hope that I educated your listeners and they enjoyed listening to some of my enthusiastic stuff about crypto. For sure. And of course, if you're listening and you want to learn more about what Will's doing, or even just learn more about these cryptos and things like that, you can visit blockchaindecrypted.com and read some of his articles. It's really great stuff.
So that's it for our interview today, which means that it is time to award our Small Business Organization of the Week. Each and every episode, we want to highlight business groups and organizations doing great work advancing the interests of entrepreneurs and small businesses, helping business people connect and being positive influences in their local communities, and so much more. And these organizations are nominated by you, our listeners. So if you ever think of one that you feel deserves to be highlighted, don't hesitate to let us know. Send an email to scott@soarpay.com and we may just mention it. But for this week, we're focusing on nonprofits, and we're happy to recognize the Pennsylvania Association of Nonprofit Organizations, or PANO. PANO, or PANO, is the statewide membership organization serving and advancing the nonprofit sector through advocacy, collaboration, education, and other services in order to improve the overall quality of life in Pennsylvania. PANO exists to support the incredible work of the nonprofit sector and highlight the critical role that nonprofits serve. They're passionate that by coming together and recognizing PA nonprofits' collective value, Pennsylvania communities and the power to do good will thrive. And their core values are the following. First, collaboration. They work as a team internally and externally. Courage. They try new things boldly, viewing failures as learning opportunities. Then curiosity. They ask good questions and listen well. Equity and inclusion. They seek to engage all people and organizations in their work. Impact. They focus on results that matter. Integrity. They build trust by doing what they say they will do. Responsiveness and flexibility. They meet people where they are. And finally, vision-focused decision-making. They start decision-making with the end goal in mind. If you'd like to learn more about them, you can visit them online at pano.org. Many congrats to them on their selection.
Well, that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like what we do here, don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes or whatever your preferred podcast listening platform is. We'll be back with another episode very soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of PayPod, brought to you by Soar Payments. Soar Payments is a leading merchant services provider for e-commerce, high-risk, and hard-to-place businesses. If you'd like to get the latest PayPod episodes sent to you automatically, subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher, or visit soarpay.com/podcast.